Hi, I'm Mike Clark. Welcome to my video. I'm going to tell you some of my own personal history and also hopefully take you on a short tour of the history that struck my life and my heart of jazz, blues, and rhythm and blues. Most of my all of my drumming style is based on what happened before me, the people that invented the music, who they were, what they did, and I tried to meet them personally and find out a little about their lives. I'm going to play one of the first funk beats that I ever heard, and we'll start from there and then move forward a little bit. Then after that, I heard a guy named Clayton Filia, who was with James Brown and on a record called Live at the Apollo 1, and he was the first guy that I heard do this. When I heard that, it sort of changed my whole life. I immediately, my drumming life, I immediately taught myself to do this, mastered it, and then went on to what I did with Herbie and then what I'm doing today. So, but that was the pivot point for me to start thinking about what people now call ghost notes, okay? So there's a few other beats that happened along the way, and but I also want to talk about the tambourine. Paul Jackson, the bass player with Herbie Hancock's father, took me and Paul to a church service one time when we were young, and they had a band, and I was listening to a girl play the tambourine, and it affected me, and I wanted to try to create a tambourine part. So that's why I started playing ghost notes with one hand, so with the left hand in my case. So, and I think the first time I tried it was something like this. From there, I was working all the time, and I played a lot of organ trio gigs, so I got bored playing just the regular backbeats, and so I started doing different things with the left hand. I started putting the backbeat where I want it, anywhere I want it, and so I sort of came up with stuff like this. So I just kept adding on. I'll mention the different influences. Well, I heard Clyde Stubblefield and Jabo start with James Brown's band when they came through Oakland. And I'm not sure exactly what Clyde plays. I never take a guy's, any other drummer's beat and copy it exactly, but it was something like this. About 1971, I went to see Bernard Purdie play, and I don't know exactly what the technical part is, but I get kind of most of it, and then just add on my own thing. But my version of what I saw him playing was this. There was another guy in Texas named Ray Torres, a great drummer, and I heard him playing the 16th note style of drumming, I guess, in 1963, and this is before I'd ever heard anybody record it. Everything before that was pretty much. So Ray played something like this. he would play over the bar, he'd do feels like. I'd never heard anybody do that before. So those are the guys that influenced me that I heard live. Also, the great David Garibaldi from Oakland and Gaylord Birch. And we're all kind of sort of arriving to sort of similar conclusions around the same time, probably based on all the guys that played funky drums that led up to that point. I mean, I listened to everybody with the, from Motown, Junior Walker, all of the drummers in Bobby Bland, James Brown, Ray Charles, you know, all soul, R&B, and funk, all the blues records going way back. So all of those drummers influenced me, and so when I finally got called to play with Herbie, I had developed, you know, through the history, I had developed my own point of view, and that went down something like this. When Herbie heard that style of drumming, it appealed to him, so I got the gig. Also, there's a lot of jazz influences. I'm also a jazz drummer, a bebop and post-bop drummer, so all of that came into play. We'll talk about that a little later, but that's kind of how the progression of beats went, and it got me to the place that I am now. I'll play a couple of beats I did. I think this is the beat from Actual Proof, or pretty close. It's been quite a few years, so that might not be exact, but it's pretty much how it went. And the way I did it was I tried to make all the limbs hit at a different time, as well as the independent thing, like playing together. I also was really interested. I lived in Texas for a long time, so I played with a lot of Texas blues guys, which led me to just playing with a lot of blues guys where I had to play the shuffle all the time. And we'll go into more about the shuffle and the different styles later, but this part of the shuffle, I always dug that. I could really sort of dig into that and get all the meat out of it right there. So I put that into all my funk beats. I wanted to show you something like what I saw Jabbo play with James Brown. And like I say, once again, I don't copy the drummer's beats exactly. I just get what I like about them and sort of call it a day. But this is what I thought I saw him playing. But it was swinging funk. I just remember his style was not so choppy and eighth note, 16th. It was swinging. And I saw him play like. Okay. He also added ghost notes. I remember. Once again, I can't mention all of the drummers that I listen to, but I went out and I didn't just listen to them on record. I went out and heard them and met them and talked to them and tried to glean something from what they were doing. So, so swing and funk also became part of my thing after watching him play like that. And then when I play with Herbie, I had to play Chameleon and Sly and some of those things. So Harvey Mason was on those records. He's one of my favorites too. And I heard him playing this beat that he's famous for. I'm not sure this is exactly either, so please forgive me, Harvey, and everybody else if I haven't got this perfect. But I heard him playing this after beat. I'm not sure if that's perfect, Harvey, so excuse me, but that's something like that. But what attracted me to the beat was this offbeat he played with a snare. Right there, that beat. So what I did with that, I started putting in my own stuff, like adding a little jazz stuff in with a left hand, a little triplet, kind of a la Elvin. Swing and funk was an important thing, milestone for me as well, to add on to my style, because I was already deep into playing jazz, so it went right. It was in accord with what I was thinking. From there, we'll move into some of my own stuff. There was a tune we used to play called Sly with Herbie's band, and I think Harvey played something like this. That was what we play at the beginning of the tune, and then when things really got boiling, I'd break into a beat kind of like this. That would open it up for a lot of sort of so-called jazz improv, you know, behind what Herbie was playing. And we'd go on from there as far as we were possibly able to, push the envelope as far as we could without trying to blow. Also, Lenny White is one of my great heroes, and he was playing really broken up paradiddle type fast fusion beats, and so I added some of that as well as what I thought he was doing, playing jazz, into my repertoire. I'm going to play some of my beats that I've been playing like since Herbie. This is one, you know, Elvin Jones used to always wind up the climax of his solos with something like, you know, and I just took that. I know a lot of you guys can play that real fast, and the technique is really advanced, but this is, I'm talking about my time period. So I took that and just decided to break things up on the hi-hat for some funk like that. So I played a tune called 4-String Drive on an album, The Funk Stops Here, with Paul Jackson and Kenny Garrett and myself, and I played a beat based on this Elvin thing. Like I said before, all my stuff usually comes from jazz history, even though I'm known as a funk drummer, so to speak. All right, so this is that beat. I'm just going to go through a succession of these beats. So like I say, I kind of got that from the Elvin thing. I taught at the Drummers Collective. I still do at times. And there's a great drummer there, a friend of mine named Frank Katz. And I saw him reaching up for the hi-hat with his left hand like this. And I thought, man, that's a great idea. Right there for you. You don't have to do any too much movement. You know, most of the great drummers play, Buddy Rich, all those guys, kind of low to the head. It's not like a arm. I mean, you can definitely get to that in the heat of the moment. But this just appealed to me because it was close to the head and it sounded good. I knew it would record well. It's an easy move to make. So I watched him doing this, and so I added it to my own thing. Another thing I did was I decided to play on the wrong side of the beat. Instead of playing on the 2 and the 4, I would play on the 1 and the 3, or something other than the 2 and the 4. Beats don't have to be complicated to make them swing, you know. So then I take the thing I kind of saw that I thought I witnessed and heard Purdy doing, and I took the backbeats out of it. David Garibaldi, my dear friend and old friend from Oakland, he would put he'd put the swing part in the middle of his beats. So I copped that from him. David, I stole this from you. And I put it in the middle of my beats. And Harvey also did something like that. So I just, if I had to play fast kind of funk, I'd use that. Like, Paul Jackson used to like it when I didn't play any backbeat at all. He called it talking with the bass drum. I'd play some backbeats, usually on the 1 or the 1 and the 3. I'd play backwards to the time. But, you know, we used to kind of play this game on the stage where I just stopped playing backbeats and just the bass drum would be the whole hook. So I went something like this. It was kind of fun. Like. about the shuffle a little bit. I played with a lot of the blues guys, Albert King, Albert Collins, Jimmy Reed, O.C. Smith, and lived in Texas for a while, so I heard a lot of great drummers, learned different ways of looking at the shuffle, how to play it. A lot of guys play the shuffle and they don't really dig in on the backbeat. I was taught you had to really dig in a little more than you thought you had to. So it kind of came out like this. You can play your shuffle like this and not hit quite as hard as I was a minute ago, kind of. And that gives you a certain kind of feeling. It's kind of close together. I put them kind of close together. That's kind of the Texas style. And the other style I showed was like the big beat, which is where you really bang the shuffle really hard. The backbeat, you really dig it in. And then the other thing was I wanted to talk about was the flat tire shuffle or Texas shuffles, where you play it all on the ends of the beat, like. And the last thing is the back half of the shuffle. That's what we used to call it. Where you answer with the foot. I used to play with Bill Doggett, the organ player that had the hit out Honky Tonk when I was a kid, and he liked it when you played just that. So, and the original shuffle I showed you, where you really play hard. For guys like Albert King, who would yell at you if you didn't do that, he used to. His way of putting it was like he wanted you. He'd say, "Put more bacon fat on it." So he wanted you to put that bacon fat on there. He meant he wanted to really feel that, the meat of the shuffle right there. The thing about the shuffle that was so fun is, always to try and find out how to lay it to make it lay the funkiest. You know what I mean? We used to call it putting it in the cracks, where you just kind of play it. Really, there was a certain way you could just get it to go together. We used to put the notes real close together, especially on a fast one like. And then that leads me to swing. We liked it because it swung, and most of the music we heard in those days, even the early rock and roll, was all swing. So this brings me to my next point. My swing heroes before I got into bebop, one of them was Sam Woodyard, and I used to go hear him with Duke Ellington's band. And he turned his hand in a circle. This is back to the history again. He turned his hand in a circle like this, and like he was almost taking a chunk out of the cymbal, so it would make the groove dance. I don't play that style, but I can't really imitate. I'm going to do an imitation of him the best that I can and show you how I came to my swing beat. It's like for playing 4/4. What I did was try to get that feeling that he was getting, and I backed off on it a little bit and put different skips in the cymbal so it would sound like this. when you're playing swing music or jazz music, I would entertain, you know, the other musicians want to hear something, so it's not just about playing the cymbal. So I'd give them something to listen to, like this. Put on the hi-hat. Then when you take it away from them, it changes, you know, when you take it away from it and play the hi-hat regular again, it changes the feel of things, you know, it makes it really nice. And also you can play the bass drum, like a lot of great jazz drummers, you know, play the bass drum very quiet form. You don't hear him all the time playing 4/4, but it's there. A lot of greats do it. Tony Williams even did it, you know. I don't do that all the time. Sometimes I just play without the bass drum, you know, no 4/4, just. You know, leaves me open for different ideas in the phrasing. But then I met Elvin when I was with Herbie. I'd been listening to Elvin Jones for years, but when I was with Herbie, I went and talked to him, and he kind of choked up on his stick. I'm not quite sure how he played his cymbal. It's been elusive, and I've never really tried to figure it out, but it was some kind of a triplet thing, and he'd play it real relaxed. So I tried to get something like that going so that I'm not always stuck on this big 4/4. Later on, Tony, Lenny White, and those guys played sometimes they played more of 8/8 type cymbal work. So, then the other thing, sometimes no hi-hat. This way, you know, you just use your hi-hat like another drum or another instrument, just as when you want to, not as a timepiece to. You'd use it just for ideas. When we used to play slow blues, you know, most guys would play a pattern like this. And then my friend Ray Torres, I got from him, he would play slow blues like this. So From him, I got my style of slow blues, which is like this. I was just getting ready to say, if you have to play regular slow blues, don't feel funny about it. It feels great. But I kind of did the Ghost thing, being an Oakland drummer, and made it come out like this. You know, also, when you're playing blues, slow blues, and the band starts to open up, it comes out of the head of the tune, you go into the solos. Usually to open it up more, you go to the cymbal. So when I do that, I add little hi-hat things to spur things along. Slow blues. Even when I play funk, my phrasing comes from the jazz drummers, so my stuff sounds a little different. Like. I don't think of drumming in terms of technique or chops. I think of it in terms of rhythm and history or phrasing. So most of my phrasing, when I started, was more the bebop style, Max, Philly Joe, those guys. I was into like Then I heard Elvin. I'm not sure what he was doing with his hands, but I sort of made up my own version of what I thought he was doing, and it brought me into a little different kind of phrasing, like. So I think when I played with Herbie, that might have been what attracted him to my drumming was, I didn't play stuff like this. I mean, I have played stuff like that, and I'm not saying it's not a good idea, but most of my stuff came from the jazz tradition. Here's some more jazz and funk phrasing. Another challenge I had was to play fast funk with Herbie, like really fast. Like sometimes it would be like. You know, when you're taking choruses, playing drum solos, like, you have to know where you are in the tune. You have to know the song form, whether it's blues, 12 bars, or rhythm changes, 32 bars, or original tunes with, odd number of bars, whatever the form is. That if you play a drum solo, ideally, great drummers, at least my heroes, always played the tune. So let's say 32 bars, you have A, A, B, A. So I always try to let the band know where I am in the solo, in the drum solo. Because if I play all the polyrhythmical stuff that I know and don't let them feel where I am, even though it is their job to come out right at the end of the tune, I feel it's my job to let them know where it is, because I've even stood next to some of the greatest drummers and heard them play a couple of choruses, and I had no idea where they were. They didn't really let the band know. Not and these guys are great. Not that everybody has to, but I always try to set it up. A, B, A. Let them know where both A's are, the bridge and the last A. So we'll say 1, 2, 1, 2, 3. That would have been the top of the tune had I have struck the cymbal. But you should, also it's good to practice. I used to practice playing like very avant-garde and being right on the time with the tune forms too. So if it's the same structure, it would be like. 32 bars once again. Lenny White is a master of playing to where he can make the drum solo so avant-garde. You think he is in another time and in another song, and he comes out perfect at the end of the tune, of the song form. Especially in I hear him in the Buster Williams group, and they all come in together, and the audience goes crazy. So the end result is you make the touchdown. And even if you play time through most of your solos, it's important for the drummers to know where you are in the tune when you're soloing, and let the band know, so that when there's nothing worse than a guy playing a beautiful bunch of technical ideas, and he comes in with the top of the tune swinging and burning, and the band's struggling to find the tune. It still kind of mars their performance. So Herbie and those guys, Joe Henderson, some of the guys I play with, Eddie Henderson, always said, "Mike, let us know where you are." So that's my goal, no matter what the song forms are. Sometimes we're called upon, drummers are, to trade eights, fours, choruses, whatever, with the band. So this means soloist in the band will take 8 bars, and then we take 8 bars, and back and forth. 8 bars them, 8 bars us, 8 bars, you know, if it's a saxophone, guitar, organ, trombone, whatever. So since there's no band, I'll be the band, and I'm gonna play, I'm gonna trade eights with me, okay? Here's a few eights at a little brighter tempo. was thinking about styles before I got here, and my style, which is one I know the best because it's me, is I think I heard Al Foster say one time, you take 4 or 5 guys, or however many that you like, or women play the drums, and you get you take the people you are most attracted to, the style of drumming that you're most attracted to, and you kind of you make an attempt to sort of play in those people's styles, and then being that you're not them and don't have their life experience, you're going to end up playing your style by mishmashing all those styles together, plus whatever you've gleaned on the way to the forum. So I say, my experience anyway, is not to copy another drummer verbatim but use those drummers that you really love as a springboard for your own creativity and for your own growth, like make your own statement. So all the guys that played on all of the blues records, I love all the drummers that ever played the blues or funk. I don't care how much chops they had, whether they played this kind of groove or that kind of groove. Those guys were all my heroes, as well as Joe Jones, Papa Joe Jones, Philly Joe Jones, Roy Haynes, Art Blakey, Tony Williams, Elvin Jones, Gene Krupa, Louis Bellson, and Mickey Roker, Tony Williams, Lenny White. I don't want to leave anybody out because I know most of these guys, and Tootie Heath, whoever played jazz and really made it swing, Ben Riley and Jabali, Billy Hart. These are the drummers that I love and that I patterned whatever I do after all of those guys, along with my own 2 cents. Buddy Rich, I should have wrote a list. I was fortunate enough to be asked to play with Herbie Hancock, and but I had my own style, and it was already fairly strong before I met him. So I think that he liked the fact that I had my own voice, and he encouraged me. As a matter of fact, I tried to, when I first auditioned with him, I tried to play like Tony, and I tried to show him I knew a little about Elvin, and he said, "Look, I know Tony Williams. He's my best friend. If I wanted him, I'll just call him and have him come over, you know." So he said, "I want you to play your viewpoint. I want to hear your viewpoint on funky music and jazz combined into one." We were one of the first bands that combined funk and jazz, not rock and jazz. And so Lenny White, Harvey Mason, Billy Cobham, and myself kind of were at the forefront of combining funk and jazz, especially as far as funk goes. Lenny, Bitches Brew, you know, Jack DeJohnette, also one of my favorite drummers, was instrumental in that, you know. So you take, once again, I'm getting away from the point, you take the guys and the girls, whoever's playing that you really dig, and make your own statement. I think that way you rise to the top. People will hear about you, they'll, you know, and you can make a name for yourself, or you can make or more important than making a name for yourself, a career move, is you can make a statement, an artistic statement. My statement is made based on the history. I'm in just my own personal thing. I'm into studying the history, where the music came from, who were the guys that invented it, and can I add anything to the music to make a contribution, you know, not to take from, but to make a contribution. So I think it's really important to study the history. History, to me, is really important. Plus, it's fun to listen to all those guys play. I mean, there's nothing better to listen to a bunch of cats play jazz, funk, rhythm and blues, soul. For me, in the world that I live in, there's nothing better. It doesn't get any better than that. So that's what I've tried to do. Unwittingly, I took the music of the people I loved listening to and just sort of melded it into what it is that I do. Yesterday, I was in here with my organ group, Jed Levy, with Jed Levy on the saxophone and Jerry Z on organ. And we played a tune by a dear friend of mine, Linda Reynolds, entitled Past Lives. And on this tune, we incorporated a groove that's in the crack. It's neither swing and it's not funk. So it's like kind of an eighth note swing. So it kind of incorporates samba, swing, jazz, and everything. And the groove was something, I don't remember exactly what we played, but it's not, and it's not, so it's kind of like, in New York, I had to become a master of playing in the crack. Not swing, not funk, not samba. It's kind of a mishmash of all the things. I think the first guy I heard do that was Lenny White on Bitches Brew, and Billy Hart is also a master of that kind of playing, and I love playing like that. tenor saxophone player Jed Levy and I wrote a tune called Loft Funk. In my New York experience, when I first moved to New York in 1979, we used to play jazz in people's lofts, especially on the Lower East Side. And I was also in New York in the late 60s, early 70s, actually the early 70s. And I played jazz in people's lofts in Soho and in downtown. And so it was loft jazz. So as the times changed, they were playing funk in people's lofts. So we wrote this tune together, Jed and I, for the Headhunter CD, Evolution Revolution, called Loft Funk. And it features one of my signature beats. once again tip my hat to the great drummer Ray Torres, my dear friend, who started me on the road of sci-fying the slow blues. So my way of showing my respect and love for him is with this slow blues we're getting ready to play right now. Nobody loves playing a shuffle any better than I do. I've played blues shuffle with all the great blues guitarists and singers, just about all of them, a lot of them anyway. And my father used to take me to see Louis Prima when I was a kid, and he had a great drummer, Paul Ferrara, who I know from New Orleans, and he played a fantastic shuffle, and I used to sit right next to his hi-hat and watch him knock that shuffle out, and it blew my mind totally to this day. And although the shuffle we're playing is not a Louis Prima style shuffle, it's more blues, organ blues shuffle. Here's my take on that. I guess you never stop working on your medium swing, you know. And I've had a lot of advice from great drummers. A great drummer named John Waller, great jazz drummer Danny Richmond, Lenny White. We all talk about the ride beat. So here's my medium swing. Also, another great challenge is playing medium up or medium bright swing and making everything lay. So here's my viewpoint on that with the band. I guess I'm best known for the Oakland style drum and 16th note funk type grooves. So here's my take on that. 25 years later, and yet another take on the Oakland funk style. Okay, I'm gonna play a little solo for you guys. I have a song in my head, so I'm just gonna try to make some music for you. thank you so much for checking out my video. And in closing, I would like to end with an ending. This is you know how like on an ending chord, when the band's da, and drummers play everything they know? This is an ending that I heard was shown to me. I actually learned an ending from Ray Torres. And this is one of the funkiest endings I've ever heard in my life. So this would be a befitting end to this video. So, you know, let's say the band has played, it's the tag going out and it's the end and they hit the last chord of the tune. The end. From the bottom of my heart, thank you, Papa Joe. Thank you, Philly Joe. Thank you, Roy Haynes. Thank you, Lenny White. Thank you, Tony Williams. Thank you, Buddy Rich. Thank you, Danny Richmond. I don't want to leave anybody out here. Thank you very, very much, Max Roach. Thank you, Ray Torres. Thank you, Dave Black. Thank you, Vince Laudiano. Thank you, John Waller. Thank you, Louis Belson, Gene Krupa, Denzel Best. Thank you, all the great, thank you, Clyde Stubblefield. Thank you, Jabbo Stark. Thank you, Bernard Purdy. Thank you, all the great drummers without I would not have a career. And thank you for bringing so much joy into my life and allowing me this opportunity to pay my respects and show my love to each and every one of you. Thank you. If I left anybody out, believe me, you're in there. I just can't think of it right now. Thank you.